this is a draft review of the top 8 draft in my RTN. It was a 13-player RTN. I played Kayo in a 5-man pod to get there. And yeah, so this is me sitting left from a player who I think usually prefers Guardian and Brute, I would guess. Although he did play Warrior and 3-0'd the 5-man pod with me. And then I'm sitting 2 seats to the left of a friend who's a very, very strong player, an ex-Finnish champion, and has a bit of a Guardian or even a Victor preference in the draft. So that's the setup. I'm looking at this first pack. The first thing I always try to do is find, what are the strong cards, but then I also want to make sure that I count the cards that are in there for each class. So here we have 2 Brute cards, 3 Guardian cards, and I believe 3 Warrior cards then at the bottom. Yes. And then we have a bunch of hybrids and so on. Test of Strength is probably the best common in the set to first pick. You're happy putting it into every deck. My first episode had a pretty negative view on this card. I've since come way up on it. So I would be picking Test of Strength here. I might be tempted to pick up Bare Fangs in some situations if I had a read that I'm, players around me like Warrior, for example. But Test of Strength is the safe card that you really want to be opening in your pack one anyway. So at this point, I'm trying to remember it's 2-3-3 for Brute, Guardian, and Warrior cards in the pack that I passed, and I can then count those when they come back. I get the second pack, and lo and behold, there aren't any Brute commons in the pack. So the player to my right is strong enough to know that I'm strong enough to know that this is a very clear signal. So at this point, I'm basically saying, okay, I will not be Brute until you tell me otherwise. So I'm mostly looking at Guardian and Warrior cards at this point. I'm counting those as well. So we have 4 Guardian cards here and 2 Warrior cards, and then a bunch of other stuff. And Concuss is really I would say by far the strongest card in the pack. You could be picking Trade-in to really stay open, but Trade-in it's kind of a Kassai / Rhinar card. And I don't want to be Brute, so it's really putting me into Kassai, and it's not really a second pick card for Kassai either, really. It could be, but it's not insanely strong. So Concuss Red is the best Guardian class common to go into Guardian, so I picked that one happily. And now this is the pack that was opened by the Guardian player, or the Victor preferred player, the guy who usually likes to play Guardian, I would say. So again, I do a bit of a count. I see what we have here in the pack. There's a Brute card. There's a Warrior Rainbow Foil. But note again that there's only one Brute common. There are 2 Warrior commons in non-foil. And then there's 1 Guardian common in non-foil. So either a Brute or a Guardian card has been picked, and at this point it's probably safe to assume that it's a Brute card, given that the player to my right very heavily signaled Brute. So my options here are take Wage Agility and hedge for Warrior together with the Guardian card I picked. I could pick Overcome Adversity to just stay fully open, or I could take this pretty good Guardian signal that Guardian is open and pick the Smack of Reality, which I think is a better card than Command Respect Red. I'm really still not sure what I should be picking here. Wage Agility is probably the strongest card. Overcome Adversity is the most open one. But if I can't go to Brute, then Wage Agility falls down a bit. Because at this point, my Brute signal reading is that it's really, really closed. And both of the other classes could potentially be open. So I'm thinking of picking the Overcome Adversity here, but I think in the end I switch. at this point, I almost pick it, and then I decide that no, I will do the more powerful thing. I will read this Guardian signal as it looks, and I will be going Guardian until someone tells me otherwise. I pick the next pack. There's a red Wild Ride, a red Edge Ahead, a red Take the Upper Hand, so very good warrior cards. And I think there's no Guardian common here. Oh, there's a Pint of Strong and Stout. Okay, that's fine. So there are 2 Brute cards, a Guardian card, a common, and then a couple warrior commons. But here the warrior cards seem really strong to be at pick 4. We're talking about Take the Upper Hand and Edge Ahead in red. Both of them, these are premium warrior cards. And the Pint is maybe not strong enough for me to fully commit yet. And I still believe that the player to my right is probably Brute. So I have some options. I could take the Pint, or I could take one of these warrior cards and stay a little bit open. So I take the Upper Hand. I really like that card. It's a block 3 attack reaction, so that gets around a lot of stuff. And then it's very powerful in Olympia, and it's also powerful in Kassai if you have enough of these wager cards. So here we have a Wallop red. It's not really one of the premium reds for Guardian. We have an Embrace Adversity, which is a good card to stay open. Clash of Vigor is probably a better Guardian card than red Wallop. But then we have a couple Draw Swords red. And this is starting to tell me that, and also a Goblet, by the way. So this is starting to tell me that actually Warrior is pretty open. And I would probably be able to even wheel like a relatively decent Warrior card from this pack. So that makes me feel that hedging for Warrior and Guardian at this point at pick 5 makes the most sense, so that I have a couple cards for each, and then I can decide where to go after that. So I take the non-foil Draw Swords because that sends a slightly stronger signal than the foil one. And here we have, again, strong Guardian, strong Warrior cards left in the pack. Yellow Bear Fangs is fine. Raw Meat is really good, but I don't want to be picking it early anyway if I'm a Brute, probably. There's a Pack Hunt Blue as well, which is pretty good, especially in Rhinar. But also, blue block 3. So this pack isn't telling me much, other than this was a really strong pack because there are all these strong cards left. And I picked the Hold'em basically because I'm sort of open between Guardian and Warrior, but a little bit more strong Warrior cards have been wheeling or spinning around the table, and I know that the player 2 seats to my right is a victor drafter basically in many cases. So here again we have strong Warrior blues, Fatal Engagement by far the strongest, and then we had some decent Guardian cards there as well. Here then we have 7 cards in the pack, and not super strong ones, but the Clash of Vigor is pretty good in both Guardian and Warrior, because even though as a Warrior you lose the Clash, you don't mind in many situations still a blue block 3. So I picked that one up. Kind of, in theory, keeps me open still. Then we have 6 cards in the pack, and this is the card we open, the pack that we opened, right? So if we remember, we had 2 3/3 as Brute, Guardian, and Warrior cards, and here what we have left is 2 Warrior cards and a Guardian card. So the 2 Brute cards have gone, 2 Guardian cards have gone, and 1 Warrior card had gone. So that's telling us that Warrior probably is the place to be, and I picked up Take It on the Chin, which was clearly the strongest card in the pack. Here we have a yellow Hold'em, which is a decent Kassai guard. It kind of does something, but most of the time you block 3 with it. And it's like a decent-ish Olympia card because it gives you a wager, but most of the time, again, it blocks 3. So that's what you want from your yellows. But picking up some yellow block 3s here and there, if you're ending up on Kassai, is exactly what you want to be doing because you don't want to spend premium picks on those yellows. So getting them while you can in a weaker pack is exactly what you should be doing. So at this point, I'm committed to warrior, and I know that there's a brute to my right. It's very, very likely. And since 2 guardian cards have gone, there are probably a couple guardians. There could be a couple guardians in the pot, so I'm really happy that I didn't go guardian at that point. Whereas only 1 warrior card was picked up from the pack, and the take it on the chin was left there as well. So there's a pretty good warrior seat that I feel like I'm in. And here I'm seeing again a yellow agile engagement, not really what you want in your deck, but a blue draw swords, a fantastic blue block 3 that doesn't you at this point, if you can be picking block 3 blues, it's exactly what you want to be doing because then it doesn't give you a panic at the end of the draft of getting enough blues or getting enough block 3 blues especially. So that's a fantastic pick. At this point, I don't know yet if I'm Olympia or Kassai, but of course I have a Kassai preference in that this is the RTN, and if you win with the hero that wins the most, I guess RTNs basically, also gets the Promo CnC. So, and that's probably more valuable than the gold foil, right? Oh, that's just guessing at this point, but that's what it feels like, given that there's probably only 100 or so given out. At the end of the pack, I picked up a couple 2-block blues and a yellow wage vigor. And toward the end, you'll notice that all of these will be making my deck. So getting 3 playables into your deck at the end of pack 1 is really nice. So we have the review. We don't really have a ton of like strong warrior cards. We have hold 'em, draw swords, and take the upper hand. Then we have a bunch of blues, which is good. You don't want to, panic with your blues at the end. So we have 5 blues here, 3 of which are block 3s. We have a couple of cards that block. And then we have 3 strong warrior reds and a couple yellows. That kind of can fill our deck if we need to, and probably make our deck. Hold 'em and wage vigor are fine. Fine yellows. Not the greatest, but they usually make your deck. At this point, we don't really know if we're Kassai or Olympia, as said, but of course the Kassai preference is there because of the CnC possibility. I think it's like 16 wins for Kassai and something like 8 for Olympia at this point, so you can pretty safely say that Olympia is not winning the race. We have a fatal engagement blue and a take the upper hand red, so we're pretty good on the attack reaction front. So we just want more power, a few blues, and to have a good idea if we should be Kassai or Olympia. That's what we want from the next pack. And whether to be Kassai or Olympia, as you know from the Warrior episode, it depends a lot on specializations. It also depends a lot on your ratio. So do you have good yellows to put in your deck for Kassai? Do you have draw card effects, etc. Right? Here we're opening pack 2. We see Wage Gold, red, which is a premium card for both Kassai and Olympia. It's even better in Kassai because you do more with the gold. We see Flat Trackers, always a strong card, but I think it's better in Brute than in Warrior, so I'm probably taking the Wage Gold over that one in Warrior most of the time. Confront Adversity, Rising Energy. I'm just picking up these cards, which I'm thinking of wheeling that would go into my deck if I got them. So just looking at, how many cards here are going into my deck, which ones are the ones that will probably wheel. But Wage Gold and Flat Trackers will definitely not wheel. So I need to pick up one of those if I want them now. And out of these, as said, I think Wage Gold is a preferred one for Warrior. This is also kind of hedging my Olympia spot because I had to take the Upper Hand, which is a really good Olympia card, but I didn't have any red wager cards. And lo and behold, we open a red wage Agility and a red Edge Ahead. So really strong cards for my deck here. There's also a blue down but not out. But I think at this point, since I'm not sort of lacking blues, I'm more considering the Edge Ahead and especially the Wage Agility. I think Wage Agility is just a better card. Face Adversity also is a decent pick just to make sure that you have a headpiece and a good one at that. So it's by far the best one out of these commons. But I do pick up the Wage Agility and go on with my life. So this is the third pick then, and there's another Wage Agility here. So at this point, if I knew already, if I was Kassai or Olympia, I could pick Draw Swords as the Kassai. I could pick Wage Agility as the Olympia, but probably Wage Agility could just be better for both. So it's in many ways a safer pick. I'm looking at just through the pack of what is there, what can I wheel, what has maybe been taken, etc. There's much less wheeling happening from this pack, but I picked the Wage Agility and I hope that I could maybe get the Goblet back, for example. The Clash of Agility is not really a strong Warrior blue, even though it blocks 3. It's a huge liability, so you don't usually want to put that in your deck unless you're facing another Warrior or you're facing maybe a Guardian. But you'd rather have other blues. So we look at the next pack. We have Take the Upper Hand, blue, Hold'em blue. Those are really the considerations. Edge Ahead yellow if we were, lacking yellows as Kassai, for example. But out of these, they're both block 3 blues. That's what they are. But Take the Upper Hand has a slight edge in the sense that it also blocks Overpower really well. And I just picked up, 3 premium wager cards. So it's also something that I can play if I need to. So I picked to Take the Upper Hand. Next, we see a pretty weak pack, right? We have some yellows. So again, if we're going Kassai, these help us with the yellow block 3s. They're, some of the better yellow block 3s. There's also a Beckon Applause, which we probably want to pick up at some point in the draft. But we've also picked up a lot of good Olympia cards. So there is a chance we're going Olympia if the upcoming packs tell us to do so. But other than that, it's it's a relatively weak pack for us. So might as well pick up the Beckon Applause here and see what happens with our equipment down the line. Here's another relatively weak pack for us. There's a Rally the Rearguard red. There's a Slap Happy, which I'm not a gigantic fan of. And there's a blue Hold'em. So a blue block 3 I'm quite happy still picking up at this point in the draft. But these previous couple packs have told me maybe that there could be some Warriors to my left, since I'm not getting any of the power cards. All I'm getting are these blue block 3s and Goblets and so on. So here we have a Goblet, we have a Vigor Girth and an Edge Ahead blue. I'm not really lacking in blue block 3s at this point. There's also a Glory Seeker if we're going Kassai. That's a pretty good Kassai hat. So that could actually be a consideration here if I really, really prefer Kassai for the CNC promo opportunity. But kind of I still think Goblet is the better pick here, and I think that's what I end up taking. I also just picked up the Beckon Applause, so you want to make sure that you have some goblets in your deck because that's the only reliable way to generate both of these tokens. I seem to be wobbling on which of these three I should pick. I hope I pick the goblet. Yes, I do. The Beckon is fresh in my mind. Here we again have a very bad lack of power cards for warrior. So this pack 2 has really been a tale of two sides, right? First we got 3 really strong wager cards at the top, and then we've been picking these blues the rest of the pack. So at least we're hoping that maybe there's a Brute and Guardian to my right, and pack 3 we can start picking some of those power reds that our deck needs, and now we just fill the deck with all these blues. And we fill it with blue block 3s, we fill it with goblets, etc. So we're very, very happy with the blues that we have in our deck, but we're getting a little bit uncomfortable with our reds. Here, there are a few opportunities you could pick here. You could pick the Edge Ahead as kind of a, okay Olympia card, decent Kassai yellow, or very good Kassai yellow, I would say. You could pick the Lead with Speed as an agility generator if you're really lacking that. I don't feel like we are necessarily. We have a take it on the chin, etc. There's a Wage Might red here, which is huge. This is the pack we opened, so this is I don't know what this Wage Might is still doing here. But you could also pick the Rising Energy, or you could pick the Confront Adversity just to make sure you have a good chest piece. We passed a Vigor Girth earlier. I don't think we're getting it back. So there are a few options. All of these are medium, or like C+ level. Most of them, or C to C+ level for most of these. But I picked the Confront Adversity. I at least have a chest piece. I don't need to worry about that. So when the time comes to pick between a chest piece and a good warrior card, I at least have the option to pick the good warrior card. Nothing really here for us other than the blue Wage figure. If there's a Guardian 2 seats to my right, which there ends up being, they're celebrating with that, red wallop still hitting them as a third last pick. Nothing much there. I think I took the starting stake. Again, nothing really here. So we, the vigorous, and we have so many blues that at this point it might actually make sense to hate draft this from the strong player, because the vigorous engagement is not necessarily even making our deck as a blue. We get a big pop yellow as the last pick. That doesn't really tell us very much. And we got to cut the deck yellow around, so we are still open to going Kassai or Olympia. We have maybe a stronger Olympia deck, but we have some good Kassai cards as well. We have the draw swords, we have the wage gold, and then we have some agility generation, and we have some yellows. So we can go either way, but what our deck looks like at this point is very, very blue. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was something like 11 or 12 blues already. So it's not something we're lacking, but we are lacking is powerful red cards. That pack 2 was really weak, so there must be some warriors to my left who are really preferring their reds. So here I'm just looking at what is the deck composition overall. What are the reds I'm playing that are giving me the power that I need? What are the equipments? And then what are now sort of the filler? What are the non-playables? I had 4 Guardian cards there as non-playables, and then these are my fillers. They're the yellows. So 4 yellows at this point, 3 of which block 3. It's a decent base to go Kassai. So I'm not sort of removing the possibility of going Kassai, even though my deck looks like a slightly stronger Olympia deck, given the wager cards and the take the upper hands. So I make a final count of the blues, a final look at my equipment, a final look at my sort of non-playables to also tell me how many cards can I go up to if I need to sideboard for a fatigue matchup or a warrior mirror, which often are pretty grindy. And then we should get the next pack pretty soon. So opening the third pack, what are we looking for? We are looking for powerful reds, first and foremost. There's a cold foil Embrace Adversity there. True money card. So that's the first thing we're looking at. And we open this pack and all the class cards are really weak. So we're not really happy with opening this kind of pack given the situation we are in. There are no strong reds for us. Rising Speed is not really a first pickable card in my mind, even though it's decent if you have a lot of gold generated. But the Engaged Swiftblade was our warrior common in yellow, super weak. Clash of Vigor, it's a fine card, but we don't really need the blues. So at this point, I think I picked the Overcome Adversity because I don't have a legs piece yet. I hope I do. That's what I would pick at this point when I'm reviewing this. The flat trackers obviously didn't come around, and there's a pretty good chance that we'll never see another flat trackers. So Overcome Adversity is a very good replacement for that. Of course, this is pushing us a little bit more to Olympia territory because Kassai would really like to have the flat trackers, whereas Olympia doesn't mind very much. We pick that one up when we hope for powerful red cards into our deck, which we go through the pack and we notice there really aren't any. And this is a bit of a sad panda moment because these first picks of the third pack are really the ones where we'd expect to see those powerful cards, because if we have read the signals correctly, there's a Brute to our right and there's probably a Guardian one seat up from that, and this is where we should be getting the power, and we're not seeing it. And this is very unfortunate to see a card like Yellow Vigorous Engagement here as the warrior common. So now we're looking at Run Into Trouble as like a pretty average card for the deck. Headliner Helm to make sure that we have a hat, but that's not really a card you pick at this point. And so we took what we could, and here we are super happy, right? Goodbye CnC, hello Priced Galia or Galia, I still don't know how to pronounce that. And we see a Draw Swords red as well. So you could decide that the CnC promo is really all we care about and go Draw Swords here, but you don't really pass a specialization headpiece if you know you are the hero, especially a block 3 one. So we are super happy here that we hedged our deck to be a very good Olympia deck, and now we're getting the rewards for that. Still, that doesn't remove the fact that we are lacking in powerful reds in our deck, so those better start coming pretty soon. We get the next pack, we notice that there's a Vigor Girth there, there's a Take It on the Chin, but again, a major lack of good warrior reds, or even hybrid reds. So Take It on the Chin, of course, is a good card, but it's not really what we're looking for. We already have one, and we have a Test of Strength. So we're looking for cards that attack and not block, but it's still by far the best card to be picking here, since we already have a chest piece. and we already have plenty of blue block trees, so I think I take it on the chin. At least we're attacking with our swords a couple times over the game. Same story here. There's probably a warrior to the right of the guardian, and maybe even two, and they are really, really preferring red. So I don't know where they pick their blues or how many blues they plan to play in their deck, but they're really preferring their red. So I'm guessing they have like an 8 blue or a 7 blue deck at this point with all the powerful red warrior cards. So it's kind of an unfortunate situation for both of us, or all the warriors here, right? Everybody's getting a bad deck. Mine lacks reds, and there probably lacks at least decent blues. And same story again. Here you can see a red thunk and a red lay down the law, a red lead with power. So even though, and a blue big pop. So even though there's a guardian 2 seats to my right, they really know what they're doing. They know that they can wheel these guardian cards at this point. There's even a blue wallop here. They know that they can wheel these cards, and they are picking the hybrids or the generics that they also want in their deck, and that's really hurting us. So this whole pack 3 has been super, super dry. All I'm getting is average blues. So it's a very, very unfortunate, I would say, a pack distribution where the powerful warrior cards were mostly stacked up in pack 1. And now this pack 3 has very weak warrior cards, even in the packs that I open or the packs that get passed to me in picks 2 and 3. And then all the reds are basically gone. There's a test of agility here and a goblet. I have so many blues at this point that I can't just be picking more blues. So I think I take the test of agility. It's not really a great warrior card, but it's fine. It blocks 4. And many of the decks you're facing, the warriors and the guardians, it probably doesn't give them a lot of value. I'm still not sure if I should be picking the goblet instead, just to make sure I have a second double token creator for my gloves. But I think I take the test of agility. I have way too many blues at this point. Wage agility is also kind of an option because I have 2 take the upper hands. One is a blue though, so but you don't really want to be playing your blue wagers if you don't have to. The test of agility also, what it does, it gives me a bit of like deck damage against the fatigue matchup. I drone on for forever thinking between the test and the goblet, but I end up with the test. Still not sure what I should be doing here. Please tell me in the comments if the goblet is a better pick at this point. But I feel like my deck cannot be all blues that provide very little effect and provide very little change to my opponents or my life total. So that's the reality of it. There's a red concuss here, so the guardians are really aggressively wheeling these cards. And there's a pint here as well. So well played by the Victor drafter, 2 seats to my right, who ended up winning the RTN because he knows he can wheel all this stuff. And well, I don't think he's getting back the concuss pack, so I'm not sure what he picked from that one when there was a concuss there. But before that, you could see that he was quite aggressively wheeling these premium guardian cards, even blue block 3s and so on. So I need to check what he picked from the concuss pack, because concuss to me is the best guardian common. Of course, if you have like a test of strength in there or something like that, then you obviously pick that one if you're Victor. Here we have a really weak pack again. I'm not a fan of lead with heart yellow. Lead with speed you can play. Lead with heart is something you'd rather leave out. I picked the lunging press as a way to maybe, cheese out a win with a big wager attack. And I can be pretty blue heavy because I'm Olympia, because I'm generating gold. I can use those blues to spin the gold into cards. But this pack 3 was a complete disaster, and at this point, I'm feeling my deck is fine. It's as good as I could have made it. That's my feeling. But the pack 3 really hosed me. All the Guardian cards of the box were really clumped up in the first pack, and now we're seeing these bigger than bigs and over the tops and so on. Both of these are completely fine Guardian cards to play, and they are the last cards in the pack. So I don't know. Maybe there were 3 warriors, 3 brutes, and 2 guardians in the pod. So in that situation, I always think that I should be the 3rd warrior rather than the 4th brute or 3rd guardian. I think I did my best. I would still probably draft exactly the same way. If I knew the strength of preference for Victor, for the player 2 seats to my right, then I probably wouldn't have taken the Smack of Reality pack 1, pick 3. I would have probably taken the Overcome Adversity or the Wage Agility. And the Wage Agility especially would have made my deck a lot stronger. I would have had 4 of these big wager attacks. But as you see later in the deck review, I'm not really lacking wager attacks. I'm lacking attack reactions, and I just didn't see any toward the ends of pack 2 or in pack 3. So really unfortunate draft from my part, but still, I feel I did the best I could, and the specialization headpiece is not something you get every draft, so that you need to be really happy about. Let's then look at the deck I ended up drafting. The first thing you'll notice is the equipment. So, of course, having a specialization headpiece, insanely strong, and a very, very good reason to be on Olympia. And it was basically the reason that I decided to be on Olympia in the end, because there's of course a big upside in being Kassai, since you have the option of winning the CnC promo. So you're really trying to be Kassai or maybe Kayo. But then, if you're forced onto the other heroes, it's of course much better to win than to lose with with one of these heroes that win other RTNs. But the hat really made me go to Olympia, but I was really hedging before that, as you could see in the draft. I was picking, or I had picked these, big wager attacks, and I had take the upper hand. So, there's always the option of going both ways. I also had a couple draw swords red. So very much until that pick, I was open to both, but hoping to go Kassai and open something really powerful for Kassai. But this is the way we went. Of course, this is not relevant after the RTN season anymore. Really, you just want to be drafting the best hero. If you're at the PT, of course, you want to be drafting the best hero. It doesn't even, I don't think it even counts for that one. So not a consideration for you guys. But if we look at the deck, we have 16 blues and 16 other colors in all the playables. I don't think I played the lunging press or the starting stake in my first matchup against Kayo, but I did play them against Victor in the second matchup. So I would, recommend cutting something like this to a 30-card shell, and then you play the extras if you're in a warrior mirror or if you're facing a Victor, especially. Maybe against Betsy you don't need it as much. The good thing about the deck is it has 2 wage agilities and a wage gold. That's a really good start for Olympia. It also has a red Hold'em, and then kind of as a backup, it has the yellow Hold'em and the wage figure, as well as the headpiece, which can save you if you really need a wager at some point. So that's pretty good. It also has 16 blues in these 32 playables, and you probably play 15 blues if you cut down to 30 cards. But then the challenge, the big challenge with the deck are the reactions. As you could see in the draft, I didn't have a lot of access to reactions. There were 3 warriors in the pod, 3 brutes, and 2 guardians. And even though there was a brute to my right and a guardian to his right, there still weren't many of these reactions going around. And that is the biggest challenge with this deck, that it basically has a red take the upper hand, which of course is probably the best reaction you can get with Olympia. It has a yellow cut the deck, which is kind of sad, and you probably mostly want to block with it. And then it has a blue fatal engagement, which is kind of good as a late game pitch stack. But other than that, it's not really going over the top. It's mostly relying on these being the wager cards being 3 for 7s and really difficult to block. And it also lacks a little bit in power cards, because some of the reds are cards like Run into Trouble, Draw Swords, which are not really huge power cards for Olympia. And that's what ended up costing me the Victor game. Is that I just didn't have enough power, raw power in the deck. And I didn't have enough reactions to go over the top. The first Kayo game in the quarterfinals, I won pretty easily. I could pick that they could go first. And then I just ran them over, attacking for like 10-ish every turn and blocking for some on top. And usually, attacking with the wage goals and the wage agility is pretty early, maybe even pumped. So that was a very, I would say, easy win for this deck. I got pretty lucky in my draws, and of course, going second with this deck was quite powerful in that matchup. And then I decided to go first against Victor. He was the 8th seed. He's a really, really strong player, ex-Finnish champion. And it went down to 1 card, so he had 1 card in deck and I had 0. But of course, he had blocked maybe 2 or 3 times with 2 cards instead of 1, just to make sure there's, he doesn't die to a reaction or something like that, which, of course, I didn't have any more in my deck. But he hadn't necessarily followed my pitch stack fully. But maybe it was more like 3 or 4 cards to 0 at the end. So I would have needed that extra oomph with the power cards and the reactions to go over the top. Also, the turn when I played Take the Upper Hand, I activated Prized Galea and played Take the Upper Hand because I think that was the last wager in my deck. He had to reinforce the line for that one, so I maybe should have waited until he doesn't block with an attack action and then do the move. I wouldn't have killed him, but it would have made his blocking a little bit more awkward. So maybe that could have potentially turned the tide a little bit. But I'm guessing still he wins just by having more deck damage, basically. But overall, I think it was a pretty good deck. I drafted my seat the way I probably should, especially, there's a Brute and Guardian to my right, so of course I should be Warrior. And I'm the 3rd Warrior in the pod, so I'd rather be the 3rd Warrior than the 4th Brute or the 3rd Guardian. So in that sense, it was a well-executed draft, but it still, of course, made me feel like there was not much I could do because the Victor matchup was pretty bad for this particular deck. Thank you so much for watching. Here's another video for you to watch, and please subscribe. It's always super appreciated. Until next time, stay curious, folks.